Devastating. The UCO points to Pedro Sánchez in the trial about the Koldo plot. Let's begin. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Medidas Cautelares. Pay close attention because today's session, Monday, in the trial about the Koldo plot at the Supreme Court could be decisive. Decisive because none other than him has appeared. Lieutenant Colonel of the Central Operational Unit of the Civil Guard, UCO, Lieutenant Colonel Antonio Balas, along with other UCO agents. And I'll just give you the headline: they have implicated Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez. We are going to share this information on the screen, as we always do, so you can follow along from home. By the way, if you haven't done it yet, remember to subscribe to the Medidas Cautelares channel. We're just about to reach 128,000 and the record, as you know, our goal is to reach 150,000. And we're now putting this very relevant information from today's trial session on the screen. We're now reaching the final stretch of the Koldo case trial at the Supreme Court, so pay close attention. Lieutenant Colonel Balas points out that the Koldo network had direct access to President Pedro Sánchez. Lieutenant Colonel Antonio Balas, from the Central Operational Unit of the Civil Guard, UCO, has emphasized that the Koldo network had direct access to the Prime Minister. The defense teams of Koldo Garcia and José Luis Ábalos have sought to discredit the UCO during this session. They tried to cast doubt on the evidence provided by the institute, attempting to undermine its validity by claiming that it could have been tampered with. To that end, the Supreme Court called two experts who tried to claim that the UCO could not certify. The audio files submitted to the case and seized from devices, for example from Coldo Garcia, had supposedly been tampered with. However, the UCO agents who have been called have been summoned to testify as witnesses in the High Court this Monday. They have first defended their reports, stressing that it was impossible to leave no doubt it was impossible to tamper with or alter the devices, and they have highlighted the access that the network had to Pedro Sánchez. Literally, they even reached the president so he can give his approval, and Ábalos tells Koldo via a screenshot. Do they succeed? The access to high-level officials is complete. That's what Antonio Balas, the Lieutenant Colonel of the UCO, said regarding the visit of Delcy Rodriguez, who at that time was Nicolas Maduro's number 2 in Venezuela, to our country. You already know she came around the year 2020. And the most important thing about this visit is that, indeed, the Koldo network, through Ábalos, had direct access to the president of the government, Pedro Sánchez. And the UCO, which never does anything by chance, wanted to highlight this. There was no reason for Lieutenant Colonel Balas to highlight it the way he did, but he wanted to do it. In other words, Pedro Sánchez, singled out by the top commander of the UCO at the Supreme Court during the Koldo case trial. Lieutenant Colonel Balas has pointed out in turn that Ábalos used his position as the PSOE's organization secretary so that the now Venezuelan dictator, so that Rodriguez could come to Spain, something he did on the orders of Victor de Aldama. This event has been explained with the aim of arguing that Ábalos was crucial to the plot. That's why he gets paid what he gets paid. They give him what they give him and they pay him what they pay him. Balas concluded that Ábalos handles the biggest things. In fact, this UCO commander has stated that one of the strengths of the criminal organization is its great ability to infiltrate different administrations, including the police or civil guard, in addition to having access to high-level institutions such as the different ministries. And regarding Europa, Balas has said, you can also see it, you can clearly see that influence, because of how the bailout was going to be given through the ICO, which depended on the Ministry of Economy, and how do they interact with Nadia Calviño? Is it also seen with CEPI in the context of the hydrocarbon scheme? Okay, you already know that CEPI is part of the Ministry of Finance, which until very recently was headed by the Vice President of the government and Minister of Finance, Maria Jesus Montero. Because it seems like you're handling a Montero. Hey, coincidentally, now when she's starting to be a bit singled out, it seems like, hey, I want to step back a little. No, don't worry, Miss Montero, because here we have precautionary measures. We're going to remember everything you've done and you won't get away so easily, like I said before. another one of the UCO agents who have testified because it's been an extremely intense day. A total of 7 UCO agents have been summoned to the Supreme Court, including Lieutenant Colonel Balas. And what they've been doing is going over the investigation report by report, topic by topic, document set by document set. That is, they've addressed the purchase of masks, they've addressed the Europa bailout, they've addressed the hiring process, or rather, the favoritism shown to Jessica Rodriguez in the public companies Ineco and Traxatex. They've also addressed the favoritism shown to Miss Asturias Claudia Montes in Logis Rail. That is all the elements that make up this scheme. This first part of the scheme that's being judged by the Supreme Court has been analyzed and confirmed. And more details have been provided by the UCO agents who are the investigators, as I mentioned before. Other UCO agents have stated that there was no way the chain of custody of the items seized by the civil guard could have been altered. It is impossible for the company to control, in the case of the prosecutor, the head of the assembly. These agents have reported the items that were seized by the U protection of LS have become victims. Faraday bag, an envelope that is designed to prevent any kind of communication with the outside, so that they can, with magnetic waves, damage the devices. For this reason, as he mentioned, the devices couldn't have been tampered with remotely either. The agents have also argued that it is not possible to manipulate the data dumps and then include them in the reports because the system they use does not allow it. We can't alter the forensic image. The analogy is an old camera. Each WhatsApp message is like a photograph. When we take out the film and run it through the hardware, it's impossible for us to manipulate it. That's what one of these agents explained. In this way, the civil guards have warned that there are still some left, and I found this very interesting. There are many lines of investigation still open regarding the Koldo case, which are still being investigated, if you'll pardon the redundancy, in the Central Investigative Court number 2 of Spain's National Court. You already know that the Koldo case is divided into several parts, and the part for the Supreme Court is the one currently being tried, while the rest are being handled directly by the National Court. And this is what this very interesting day in the Koldo case trial has yielded. We are already approaching the final stretch, and you know that the final stretch will involve the testimony of Ábalos, Koldo Garcia, and Victor de Aldama. You already know that we have given you a lot of details about what will happen in those testimonies, and we will continue to do so here on Medidas Cautelares with Miguel Ángel Pérez when they happen. That's it for this edition of Medidas Cautelares with Miguel Ángel Pérez. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if that's the case, you know you can share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. Leave me your opinions and your questions, okay? You know that I always read them very carefully, and you also know that you can become members at the chosen tier for less than 3 euros a month, or at the supreme tier for less than 7 euros a month. And allow me for that reason to dedicate today's program to our 2 latest members. Marcos, who joined at the chosen tier, and Sergio at the supreme tier. Thank you very much, Marcos and Sergio, for your trust in Medidas Cautelares with Miguel Ángel Pérez. Remember, the key is making sure everyone gets this information because knowledge is power. See you soon.